everyone, and welcome to episode 509 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTG Goldfish, Richard. How are you this fine Monday, Richard?
Good morning, Seth. A very entertaining morning as I watch Crim and you scramble trying to get a secret lair because we are recording exactly at the time it goes live, which is 9 a.m.
Well, the time it was supposed to go live, currently, I believe the website has crashed and they're experiencing technical difficulties. Crim, how goes the quest for your Marvel Secret Lair drop?
I am experiencing emotional difficulties right now. I am not in. I am on the outside. I am in line, and the line is paused, so I am fuming. I need this drop. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Look, there's many downsides. You know, there's many things to hate bots for, but today is the day that's going to spark my anti-Skynet era. All right, I'm entering that arc. The bots have won!
Yeah, so we'll let you know how that goes. Last we heard, it was going to be at least an hour in line anyway, so we might record the entire cast before the Secret Lair goes live. But if you get one, Crim, let us know, because I'm curious to see how this works out. But our big topic today, we're going to be talking Foundation. So we have the full Foundation spoiler. The set's huge. It's got a lot of ridiculous cards, a lot of reprints, and we want to talk about some of the cards that might have an impact. We didn't really get to do spoilers because we were in Vegas last week. So talk about this set, what we think it's going to do for Standard, some of the sweet new cards, what it might shake up in various formats. So that's the main plan for today. Before we get into it, though, a reminder that today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit, and Card Conduit's the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. If you ever get tired of the hassles of buy listing, you can skip them with Card Conduit. You can use their curated service where you send in as many cards as you want with a buy list value of $1 or more and pay just a 5% fee. And if you want to do a little work, you can use the sorted service where you list and sort your cards in advance and pay just a 2% fee. Either way, you're going to get a detailed report with the results and a fast payment once your order is processed. And you can even save another 10% by heading over to cardconduit.com/MTGGoldfish. Card Conduit, it's the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So thank you to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And let's talk some Magic, and let's talk Foundations. And before we get into the cards, I gotta ask you guys, so the gimmick of this set is, this is our new core set, except it's supposed to never rotate, or at least not for 5 years. We don't know exactly, but at least 5 years, maybe never. What do you think, now that we've seen this entire set? One of my worries was, what if there's a Shieldred, or I don't know, a Jewel, some busted card that's just at the top of the format? What do you think of the impact of this set on Standard now that we see it? Is it going to be something where 4 years from now we're like, come on, WotC, please rotate this? Or are we going to be happy to have these cards kind of forming the foundation, I guess you'd say, of our Standard format? For the, good one, WotC, for the foreseeable future. So what do you think of the set overall?
Okay. I am kind of, I'm here for all of it. I love the set. I think a lot of cards here are phenomenal. They are just safe enough to where I don't think most of them will be a problem. I do foresee one of them being a huge problem, and I think it's the Bloodthirsty Conqueror. I think we've got the Tainted Pact, or not, what is it? The 5-mana pack combo that's infinite life loss, life gain, continue the loop.
Sanguine Bond, Exquisite Blood, but on a creature.
Yes, there it is. We have that, and we have that at, remember, these cards, originally, they were attached to, like, 5-mana enchantments and things like that, right? But there is Starscape whatever bat, which is whenever you gain life, your opponent loses life, so that's just a 2-drop with, you know, Offspring. So you've got that, you've got Bloodthirsty Conqueror. All that needs to happen is you just gain life or do anything and it's over. And the difference is now this combo comes at a lower mana package and is on a creature. Now you would think because it's on a creature, this is better for you to answer. But I think because it's on a creature, it's easier to bring back. It's harder to, like, you know, I'm curious about that combo. Otherwise, I love this set. I think this is a cool core set. It's nice to have it back. Having played Hearthstone, I love that they had those core class cards that stayed around for a while. And I like the idea of Foundations. I'm curious to see how they're going to keep re-upping it every year. I'm sad we didn't get Mana Leak. I think Mana Leak is a card that we have a new Lava Spike, by the way. Don't give me that, Richard. Don't give me that look. We should have a Mana Leak. We don't even have a mana leak.
Forever.
Hey,
Forever standard.
What? There's nothing wrong with mana leak. We have Cavern of Souls. We have all of these things. I think for 5 years we should have a mana leak. Other than that, I think the prints, the new borders, or not the new borders, but there's a new foiling that's got the mana pattern symbols.
Yeah,
all
the
over
mana symbol foiling, I think they call it. Yeah.
Woo! That foiling cooks. I got a copy. I can talk about it now. I have a copy, and it is phenomenal. It actually feels sturdy. Now, okay, don't get me wrong, Richard. It's not one piece. It's not one piece foils. I get it. I know that. It's not like that. But it is textured, and it feels really solid. And I've tested it because I have a huge warping problem. And so I purposely left it out in my living room. I left it out of the closet outside of a binder to see if it would warp, and I left it for a whole weekend. And so far, cards warp in like 24 hours in my house, by the way. So
serious warping problem.
Yeah, I have a serious warping problem on top of foils already warping.
Yeah.
And it's stayed sturdy so far. So I'm excited for it. And I love the anime art. Baby, this is looking good. I didn't expect it for a core set, but yeah, this set is hitting on all cylinders right now.
What do you think, Richard? Overall take on the set?
The monkey's paws curling. Here's the problem, boys. We have Lawnmower Elf. We have Bolt Wave. Bolt Wave is Lava Spike, but it hits all opponents, so better for Commander. But basically, Lava Spike for 60
gets around
card.
Leyline.
You're right. It's better than Lava Spike.
It is better than Lava Spike, yeah.
This stuff lasts forever. So that's problem one. You have Lawnmower Elf forever, and either none of the cards in this set get played, because Standard's just that powerful. Like there was a tweet from Kai, and Kai said something along the lines of like, so with like 6 sets in Standard every year, what are we gonna do? Every Mythic already has Ward or Hexproof, right? Like you're gonna have the Modern problem where every set they release needs to power creep the last one, and the one before that, and the one before that. So we're gonna end up with a rotating Standard anyway. That is my guess. In the same sense that theoretically, Innistrad is legal in Modern forever. Great, but after Modern Horizons 1, 2, and 3, you ain't seeing any of that, right? So I think you're gonna see Lawnmower Elf, and then Lawnmower Elf is just going to shoot the thing in the latest Standard set to the top, the green thing, and then the next set will have something even more powerful, and then soon enough we're gonna have like in 2 years a 2-mana attack, I win the game green creature, right? So I feel this is the Modern Horizons moment for Standard, where theoretically it sounds good, and it could have been good if they just put like low-powered cards, like 3-mana Doomblades, 3-mana Rampant Growth, stuff like that you don't want to fill your main set with, but instead they put like very powerful cards, which means the actual sets need to be even more powerful. And then you're going to have 6 of them a year. Like, good luck. So this is Horizon's moment for me. I think we're going to get an actual rotating format, even though theoretically it's not supposed to rotate.
So you think we're going to have like Modern style rotation then, where just like the power creep ends up rotating stuff? Yeah, it's going to be so interesting. So I love the set. It is stronger than I expected it to be, though. Like, when I heard them announce 5-year, like, core set, I was thinking, okay, this is going to be a set that's pretty low-powered. I was expecting, dresses and negates and just kind of like the nuts and bolts cards. And we did see some of that. We see the dresses, we see the negates. One thing I love that they did with the set is add all these, like, lords and tribal synergies for, like, something we talked about in Standard is how these, like, decks built around creature types just haven't really been good enough. Even with Bloomburrow being built around that theme, only lizards have really taken off as, like, a real deck in Standard. So I love seeing like, here's a random elf lord, here's a cat lord, and with these cards existing for so long, there's going to be some point in Standard where there's just like enough elves to make an elf deck, enough cats to make a cat deck. So I love that. I am a little concerned about how high they're raising the baseline. That's the part that surprised me, and it's not always the obvious cards. It's like, so Land of War, you mentioned, that's a big one, that's like the baseline for a mana dork now, is one of the best mana dorks they've ever made. Day of Judgment being the baseline for a Wrath is like 4 mana mana. That's a change based on past standards. Another one, Zombify. Like, standard reanimation has been 5 mana for a decade now or something. Now the baseline is 4 mana because of Zombify, which means when they want to print a better reanimation spell, which they're going to want to do, what do we get? 4 mana with upside, 3 mana reanimation in standard. So I think we're going to see standard become Burst Lightning would be another one. People already play Shock, and Burst Lightning is just like strictly better. So it's actually a pretty good baseline burn spell. It is going to be wild to see where standard shakes up. As someone who likes formats with a lot of cards and powerful cards, I'm kind of excited for it, but I'm also a little bit scared that what Richard said could happen. Like, we could end up in a world where standard just is even more power creepy, and you almost have to be able to power creep it to beat some of the cards that they added to this set. So it's going to be very interesting to see how standard shakes up. For right now, I'm really excited for it, but I am a little bit nervous too that we're going to see this huge tsunami of power creep, even more than we have been seeing. Anyway, let's get into some of the individual cards. So this is not necessarily a list of the best cards, although it's cards that I think are interesting for constructed, or something I wanted to ask you all about. And then once we get past that, I want to ask you about a couple of archetypes. So Richard, why don't you take us through some of these spoiler cards?
All right, you can check out all 600 cards at mtgpreviews.com. So just a refresher. The set is Foundations. There is Foundations Jumpstart as well. So Jumpstart will not be standard legal. And then there are a handful of Foundations Commander cards. Those are also not standard legal. So when you look at a Foundations card, you need to look at the set code on the bottom to make sure it says FDN for standard purposes. But let's hit things up with Bloodthirsty Conqueror. Double black 3, so 5 mana 5/5 in black. Flying Death Touch. Whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life, and it's a Vampire Knight.
So clean, so simple. Krim, you already mentioned this card being a potential combo piece, right? You mentioned Starscape Cleric, also Enduring Tenacity is the other half of the combo too, so there's multiple pieces that combo with this. So my question for you is, we already have mono black combo in standard, right? We have undead slasher plus Equalizats. So if you match those together, you get a combo kill. How does this compare? Like, is this the safer core set version of mono black combo, or do you think this is actually like something that could be a real deck in standard built around Bloodthirsty Conqueror and its combo friends?
I think right now it is a very real deck, because now you've got redundancy. Like, almost any two pieces could go off with each other, right? And the cards alone are also solid. So yeah, I mean, like, Seth, your old pal Sunfall may be one of the most important cards that could exist right now.
You're not going to make me like Sunfall, Krim. You're not going to do it. But Seth, you are not incorrect that breaking up the combo is good. We do need ways to stop this combo. Do you think you play both the combos?
Would you say Sunfall is necessary then, Seth?
No, Day of Judgment's necessary. Day of Judgment's
right.
necessary.
You know Day of Judgment is not.
My question for you, Krim. Do you think you play both those combos in the same deck? Do you think we have a mono black deck in standard that's like playing Slasher, playing Bloodletter, playing this, and you're just like, I got a bunch of good black cards. Some of them actually just accidentally go infinite with each other. Can you beat me? Like, do you think that could be a thing?
Oh yeah. I mean, think about it. Black has the tools. We meme about it in Commander, right? That now, I mean, courtesy of your favorite card, Withering Torment, black can do everything, right? And with black doing everything, why do you need any of the other colors? Like, who cares if you're up against a control deck, right? Because you can just duress. The deck can be equipped to deal with whatever, right? And currently, as it stands, why not, right? Why not just play mono black? You have all the answers you could ask for. You've got numerous different combos. Like, Slasher is just a good threat on its own, right? Like, it's just a good threat that's already sticky. So mono black continues to keep getting really, really good cards.
What do you think of this card in combo, Richard? How big of a downside is being a creature? Because the old version of this combo was all enchantment based. Is being a creature an upside or a downside, you think?
Upside. I think the template of 2024 Magic is you are a strong, mid-range, good stuff deck that can randomly scam a win with a combo, right? And having like as a creature, you don't need a combo piece. It's just like a Bane Slayer, essentially, right? A 5-mana 5/5 flying Death Touch pseudo lifelink. If you have nothing going on, you just slap this down and you just beat them in the face until they die, right? So it is not a pure combo deck. It is a very strong mid-range card that can just, happenstance combo out. And by having such a strong black core, you're going to see what we saw from standard like this past year, the year before, right? Oh, next set, the new color is, green. Golgari, right? Oh, the good color is red. Rakdos, right? So a little worrisome, but it's strong, right? It's just a strong beater that can just randomly combo kill. So I think that's good.
And the combo pieces that you have to play with it are not that bad. It's not like you're playing some, super unplayable jank to make the combo work. You can do this with pretty much all good cards. So yeah, I think Bloodthirsty Conqueror, this has got to be like the #1 card from the set, right? Is there even any debate that there's anything? Is there anything even close to this in terms of potential standard impact?
Llanowar Elf. Day of Judgment.
Oh, okay. Reprints, yes. Okay, new card, yes. There's some very good reprints that are going to shake things
all
up
your
for
creatures
sure.
must ETB and end the game now because we're getting a Wrath on turn 4, resetting everything. So
I mean,
this may be too slow, unironically, because we're in Llanowar Elf. Well, actually, you use Llanowar Elf this out, but I don't know, right? Like we're in a very, it's gonna be fast. If you have Day of Judgment sitting around, not to mention the 18 other Wraths we have above Day of Judgment. Like Day of Judgment is the first Wrath, right? But that means if you don't want to play a 20-hour grindy game, you got to go fast, right? Or you got to go burst. So it's either fast aggro or combo, and that's coming to standard with Day of Judgment.
Oh,
speaking
of Day of Judgment,
I see you all have forgotten something that comes with Day of Judgment.
What's that?
Oh, I see we've overlooked Think Twice.
Okay, Tim's gonna be building some 2011 control
that will not be played. It's Think Twice.
You say that, Richard, but people. I love a good end of turn draw a card.
Is it better than the Clue one? We already have.
No.
Isn't there? Deduce is just better, right? Because it's 2 and 2 to draw instead of 2 and 3. Yeah, but still, like
when you have Deduce and like Caretaker's talent, that's clearly better. But but I do think that
to draw
a card. Look, draw.
We get like an 8/8 double strike trample with 2 cards nowadays. Right? Like we don't need to spend 5 mana, not impact the board, to draw 2 cards.
But I did it on your turn. You did it on your turn as well. But I took my action on your turn. That's the difference, Richard. So I already won. But other than that, I think some cards that are kind of being overlooked and worth a shot at is Raise the Past, which is a 4-mana return all creature cards with mana value 2 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. And I also think we have a wonderful card in Exemplar of Light. Because if you look at this set, we've got a lot of life gain synergies. And Exemplar of Light is 2 white, flying. Whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on it. You get it. But whenever you put 1 or more 1/1 counters on this creature, draw a card. This triggers only once a turn. I think this is it may not look fancy, it may not look great, it may even seem clunky at first, but I think because of how many pieces there are in place, I think this card is going to be pretty good. I'm not going to say it's the best because I'm not trying to get myself set up for a circle of loyalty, but I am going to say that it looks pretty solid.
I've been going back and forth on that one, whether Exemplar of Light's actually going to be good enough or not. Totally agree. There's a lot of support for it. We're even getting a new like Soul Sister creature, I believe, like a 1-drop that. Yeah, it's the power crep version. Only your creatures, but still. So we have the support for it. We already have the like Orzhov life gain mid-range deck that used to be the Bat deck, and now it's kind of just like generic Orzhov life gain shenanigans. So there is a home for it. Is it fast enough though? It's just a 4-mana 3/3 flying.
Day of Judgment, Sunfall, Angel, beat you with my lifelink land, draw a card. Right? Like it's a control finisher, I think, right? Like
ooh.
So I think it's good enough. If you go like Soul Sisters, like I don't know, that may be sus, but just a control finisher. It stabilizes, it draws, you just chain wraths, like mono white control, mono white mid ranges have been a thing for a while. So I think this is
don't forget we also have Elenda, which is the new Baron of Vizkopa.
Yeah, I
right?
think
The
Alenda is
Alenda
good.
God.
of Dusk.
The boomer cards, Variant
Yeah,
of
yeah,
Viscopa,
yeah.
baby.
Dude, look. I know people are like, Crim's too zoomer, but y'all don't know that I actually played Magic for a long time. And I remember Baron of Viscopa. That was the business. That was my prey to draw against red deck and things like that. But Alenda Saint of Dusk having hexproof from instants, dude, that's really good.
Yeah.
That's
Nope.
really good.
No get lost, no go for the. It does cut off like a huge percentage of the most popular removal spells, and then it gets really big really fast. Like if you can get above your starting life total, suddenly it becomes a huge threat. So yeah, I think Alenda could be good. I like that you mentioned Raise the Past too. I love Aristocrat decks. It reminds me of like a Rally the Ancestors, a Return to the Ranks, and we just haven't had those kind of cards in Standard recently. And we have a lot of support. We're getting the new Blood Artist in Foundations. We have free sacrifice outlets. So the pieces exist to build a deck. There might be too much graveyard hate for it to be like super tip-top tier would be my only concern, but I'm definitely excited to try building some Aristocrats. I gotta ask you about a control card, Krim, before we move on. Then we'll get back to the list, Richard. But this card, I'm very curious about if it's good. Sphinx of Forgotten Lore. So Sphinx of Forgotten Lore, 4-mana 3/3 Flash Flyer. When it attacks, you Snapcaster Mage. You can target an instant sorcery in your graveyard. It gets flashback. You can flash it back equal to its mana cost. When I first read this card, I was like, it seems slow. Is it actually going to be good enough? And then I thought, I was like, well, it's kind of like a Dreadhorde Arcanist almost, where it snowballs every turn. If you can get it going, you can flash it in end step, probably get at least one trigger. What do you think of this card, Krim? Is this a good control card? Is it a good card at all?
So I was also looking at it, right, because it seems very interesting, but it is just a 4-mana 3/3, which I kind of don't really like. I think in maybe when the last core set existed, this would have been good, but I think prior to that, a lot of time has passed, and something like this is cool. I don't want to say it sucks, because again, I think that it is a powerful effect, that it is good enough, right? I don't think it's like abysmal. There's much worse you could be doing, but let's just say, I'm not talking even control. I think this is not the shell for it. I think in a blue-black or blue-white, some kind of tempo, blue-based tempo deck, I think this could be good, right? Maybe mono-blue even. But actually, maybe mono-blue might be the home for this, because you can protect it, you can be annoying as hell with it, and you get to just keep being annoying as hell with it. But in blue-black, you have the 4-mana Enduring Curiosity. You have a surplus of things at 4. At 4 mana, almost all those cards kind of take over the game by themselves. Sphinx of Forgotten Lore does require me to fill up my own yard a little bit. It's, depending on what cards are in the yard, it's situational, yada, yada, yada. But I could see this being in the 75 of some of these decks, but as a sideboard, maybe against control, so that you can maybe get like a Duress or something like that back. But I don't know if this is main deck yet.
There's a lot of competition in the 4-drop slot. That's something I ran into. Richard, you're a Snapcaster fan. What do you think about this card?
Do you know how many games were won off the back of Snapcaster beats? That's a 2-1 that dies to like literally anything. This is a 3/3 flyer that Snapcasters like every freaking turn.
Every turn.
This is the problem with like an attacking creature is like you may not untap with it. You flash it in end of turn when they're tapped.
Flash
They get hold up mana the whole game to like play around this. And then if they hold up mana, then you think twice, Krim. Like, you got it.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
but
you
the
hit
thing
it
is
with the
insane. You guys are
Shake and
thinking
bake.
small. Like, remember? Okay, you guys are like, oh, well, I'll do a Duress. Like, okay, yeah, you can do a Doomblade, right? But remember Invoke Despair? You can just snap off a second one, right? Like, you can snap off a 6-mana spell or something for 6 mana, right? Because you're using 4 mana on your opponent's turn. When you untap and attack with it, you get full mana. So you can double cast like back-breaking spells. So I think this card is extremely strong. If it somehow sees 0 play, I'd be shocked. It's a
I don't think
damage
it'll see
viper.
0 play.
But not
It's
like,
still
fringe,
decent.
meme
Oh,
deck,
yeah.
right? I think this is a strong mid-range control contender. Like, Invoke Despair, Sphinx, Invoke Despair. Like, come on. How you beat that, right? Like, it's good.
I feel like it definitely has potential. I do worry about the amount of competition in the 4-drop slot, which Crib mentioned, but I have lost to enough Dreadhorde Arcanists to respect cards that can snowball like this, cards that can do the same thing every turn, and this can work the same way, right? Even going back to the Doomblade thing, like, if your opponent has a blocker, this triggers on attack, you can cast a removal spell, get rid of the blocker, get in some damage, keep your thing alive, do it again. So I think the card definitely has uses. I just don't know where to put it. I can't think of a like existing deck where I'm gonna jam 4 of these in my main deck, but I think it is like of a power level. And again, you gotta evaluate it through 5-year mode, right? Like at some point in the next 5 years, this card will probably be busted.
Sure.
At some point, they're gonna print a broken sorcery or instant, Seth. So therefore, you get more of them. Like it's gotta be good, right?
I think that's the beauty of this game plan.
It just gets better with every set.
Well, that's the beauty of this game plan. I think every one of these cards, because now they're around for 5 years, they have their chance. They have a chance of like shining and having their moment. And I kind of really like the idea of that for a core set. And one more thing I also forgot to mention is 3-mana Kaido. I think 3-mana Kaido is really good. That passive is so solid. That passive is so good.
I gotta veer off and ask a little finance question. Does a 5-year thing play into your decision to buy these cards or not buy these cards? Because we were talking about how maybe the Sphinx, like maybe it doesn't take off right away, but maybe 3 years from now they print the right instant and it suddenly becomes like the best deck in the format. Should you be buying these cards while they're cheap, expecting like what happens when it's in a tier 1 deck in 3 years and no one's really opening foundations anymore? Like, do you think we're going to see some wacky price stuff going on just because of this like 5-year never rotating thing? We've never really had a set like that before.
The funny thing here is I think because it's 5-year, I'm worried about some of these cards not getting lower. Right, I think there is that element of that. If you can get cards while they're cheap, do it. But I'm very curious because we have, like you mentioned, we haven't had this happen, and I think because people know that this is going to be around in 5 years, why not just buy it now, get my set, have everything I need to play the game? At least standard minded people will just have the set and then just sit on them. Like I'm not going to sell any of these cards. Whatever I open, I'm keeping unless it's bulk. I'm going to just hold on to it. I have 5 years with all these cards.
At least, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that seems wise to me, too. What do you think,
have 5 years on Tarmogoyf? How old is Tarmogoyf? Look, I think the days of buying staples are over. I think you buy it. Okay, if it's literally 10 cents, okay, go ham, right? But if it's like $1 or $2, should you pick them up, right? And I think the days of that are over. I don't believe if a card doesn't see play immediately, unless it's if it's a weird combo piece, then maybe it'll actually get another combo piece. But if it's just a like mid-rangey, like good stuff card, if it doesn't see play immediately, it most likely won't see play at all. Because you can imagine that we're entering universes beyond standard, right? You would expect the cards that see play are Final Fantasy, Marvel, etc., etc. If it's all Foundations, then Wizards has horribly screwed up. Right? Like if everyone's just playing Foundations deck, it's like, when's the last time you saw a deck of just only core set cards? Right? Like it doesn't usually happen like that. And if we learn anything from Modern, if you bought all Modern staples from 10 years ago, like you'd be nothing, right? A person that just opened a sealed box of Modern Horizons has a better collection start than you, right? So I wouldn't bother with this. Like, if you're a collector, fine. If you like it and you're like, oh, I'm going to force Sphinx of Forgotten lore for the rest of my days, then fine, right? But if you're like, wow, it's cheap, let me buy this one, right? Then you're going to end up with a list of like 50 cards. It's going to end up costing you like $300 and you're not going to use them, right? So then I think you just suck it up. If it spikes, it spikes. To $10. You buy a playset, you're out 40, but that's better than being out 300, just like hoarding all of these like non-playable
hoarding Foundations cards.
Yeah, like hoarding like random Foundations you don't care about. Like chances are Spider-Man's gonna be meta and not whatever this is, right?
I mean, traditionally core sets are not the most expensive cards, and they tend to be like, kind of the nut and bolts cards. So, but everything's just so different now. Like, I don't know what to make of Standard with this set and the Universes Beyond stuff. We're just entering a new world. You're probably right that, like, if it's not good enough now, it'll just get power crept and won't be good enough 5 years from now. But I do think it's going to be interesting to see. I think there will be cards from Foundations that, like, 4 years from now go from a couple bucks to, like, $20 when some deck breaks out. So I think it'll happen, but can you you really realistically guess the right ones? And is it worth buying all the wrong ones to hit the right one when it does happen?
Circle
Maybe
loyalty.
not.
I mean, this okay.
Yeah, Chris,
All right,
surely
all right,
Surely they'll
all
have
right.
nights at some point. Surely. Surely this can't be good, right? There's no way.
That is a top 10 card. Any other set, I'm just saying, okay? But I do actually think, though, this only applies. Everything we're talking about here only applies if you care about playing Standard. Like, this only matters if you care about Standard. Otherwise, again, who cares, right? Like, none of this matters. Literally, Magic does not... None of the sets that are being released matter unless you care about playing Standard. And because what? Everything here... I mean, if you're a Commander player, doubling season's going to be cheaper. So this is just a net positive if you're a Commander player, I think.
What's next on our card
Theoretically,
list?
I was gonna say
Okay.
they can theoretically fix Modern in this time frame and reduce Standard appeal, right? Theoretically, we're talking about 5 years, right? So
Yeah.
like, I can go play Modern again. They fixed it, right? So I don't know, right?
Could happen.
What is next in our card list? We're on card number 2, Seth. We're not making progress at all.
No.
Bolt Wave. Bolt Wave is a red sorcery, 1 mana, so a single red pip. Deals 3 damage to each opponent. So Lava Spike, but even better because it gets around hexproof. Does it target?
So
This is
Lava
good.
Spike playable? Is it good?
does this?
This is
Is it good in Standard, Krim? Because so I'm very
Oh, yeah.
confident it's good in Modern. And first time we've had Lava Spike in Pioneer, it'll be good in Pioneer burn because they just don't get that efficient a burn. But what Standard deck? So here's what I keep running into. I see these new red cards. This is one of them. Kellen's another one from this set, like a Savannah Lions that upgrades itself. When I see these cards, they read powerful. They read like cards. They should be Standard playable. But then when I think about the red decks that are popular in Standard, they're very pump spelly, right? It's very like pump spell, prowess, monstrous rage. Do you play a Lava Spike in any of the current red decks? Do you think burn is... Can we have an actual burn deck? Are we going to see a new red deck that isn't about casting giant growths on my creatures, but casting burn spells at your face? Like, where do you think it fits in Standard?
I mean, I think it fits just nicely, right? Now there's 2 variations of burn. Like, this is going to spawn potentially a second different archetype of aggro red. And I think that's pretty cool. You have 2 variations. You have monstrous rage kind of aggro, and then you have burn, just honest burn, traditional burn. Because you have Boros Charm,
Yeah.
right?
Helix.
You have Boros Charm, Helix.
You got a
Bolt
Lava
Wave.
Spike now. Yeah.
You
Maybe
even
we
have
can-
Slag Storm as a board wipe against the red mirror, and if not, it can be a 3 damage to each player.
Is Wizards trying to make next year's Standard into like 2015 Modern? I feel there's like a lot of nostalgia
Actually,
here that
you're
like
right.
did Wizards just decide that like, okay, we're just gonna let Modern go in its own way with all these cards and we'll just make Standard into what people loved about Modern? Do you think that's what they're going for?
I mean, it's got to be, right? Because first off, look at we're playing with cards. When we played at Vegas, Richard and I like Richard's Jund deck.
Oh no, I thought we were
Was
gonna hide this in
mostly in
Vegas.
Standard. Richard's Jund deck was mostly in Standard. He played
Yeah.
his Jund deck against my blue-white Standard deck, and I'm like, oh, I see Lily. I see all these cards, right? But these are almost all legal in Standard or have a power crep version in Standard. And if that's the case, I'm not surprised if what you said is true. I mean, we have Swift Spear in Standard. We have Boros Charm. We're going to have upgraded Lava Spike. And we now have Screaming Nemesis. Yo, burn players are kind of eating good here.
Yeah. Richard, what do you
This
think?
is-
Oh, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say this is why it's a problem. So there's this like basically lightning bolt Lava Spike in your back pocket, right? So anytime in the next 5 years when Wizards prints a good burn spell, right?
Yep.
Like
just
another
did.
4 mana burn spell, something good, you'll have critical mass of burn spells ready to go, and then burn is tier 1. And then how do you remove it? Like, it doesn't rotate, right? It just stays there forever, right? And then next set, they're just going to make nothing but Soul Sisters or something. Like, I don't know how you fix this, right? But you're like,
Court
because-
Firewalker.
this is like the intent, like to make all these archetype viable, right? But when you put such a strong, it's like if you have Lightning Bolt sitting here, right? You're just like another bolt away from making a just deck full of Lightning Bolts. It's rough. Like, I don't know how they're going to fix this because you just can't print burn anymore. Like another good burn spell, and burn is tier 1, right? Like we're almost there. So no burn spells for the rest of standard. No, you know,
No. Richard and everybody, may I introduce you to our Lord and Savior, Metropolis Reformer, except against Boltwave. You can't stop Boltwave. But look, I'm not joking. I played, what is it, Aegis of the Gods or whatever back in Theros when burn was popular. It's just 2 mana, 2/1. You have hexproof.
There's a new one too, right? Like a 0/4 crystal barrier or something in Foundation.
Yeah,
so it's like a 0/4 that gives you hexproof and prevents non-combat damage to your other creatures. So I think maybe it'll equal. Honestly, I would take a nice lava spike to the face compared to Monstrous Rage, Pump Spells, Leyline, shenanigans. Like I'm dreaming about someone trying to Boros charm me to death compared to what Red's doing currently. So maybe it'll be fine. Maybe it'll be fine. Richard, what do you think about Modern? That was my other question. Like, so Lava Spike 4 in Modern Burn. Do you replace Lava Spike with this, or do you end up cutting like Rift Bolt, Skewer the Critic, some of the like conditional bolts for this, and play 8 Lava Spikes? Any thoughts on what you do in Modern Burn?
Does anyone still play Modern Burn? I don't know, right?
like tier 2?
Don't you just play Boros Energy? Isn't this the better version? But I don't know, right?
That'll
maybe
be banned.
I feel this is a side grade, right? This is not a 1 mana deal 4 or anything. It's a Lava Spike that gets around certain conditions. I don't think it makes or breaks the deck, so I don't know that it really matters,
changes anything.
Yeah, so I don't think it shoots like burn up another tier or anything, right? It's just like, I don't know, your matchup spread is slightly different now. Maybe you got a couple percentage points here or there, but not a big deal.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. All right, what's next on our list? We got to get through more than 2 cards.
Sire of 7
we got
deaths.
through a lot.
Just not on the list. Sire of 7 deaths. So 7 mana colorless, or 7 mana generic, sorry. 7/7, creature Eldrazi. First strike, vigilance, menace, trample, reach, lifelink, ward, pay 7 life. It's a lot of keywords.
The cards.
Do we have any creature that cares about keywords?
There is.
Like Diglets,
Urborg Scavengers is in standard, and it's kind of like a Soul Flayer. Obviously, Soul Flayer in older formats. The design on the card's pretty sweet, right? You got 7s all over the place, 7 mechanics, 7 in the name, Ward of 7. So there's nice symmetry to the card. Is this card any good, though? This is one of the most hyped cards from the set, one of the most expensive cards from the set. I've seen some people saying it's going to see play in Modern in Eldrazi decks, which I feel like in that big pile of keywords, a couple of important ones are missing, like haste. There's no haste on here. And there's also, like, I guess Ward of Pay 7 life is a form of protection, but it's also not like a guaranteed form of protection. Like, yes, having to eat 7 to kill it is painful, but is this card any good? Or is this just like a big iconic Timmy French vanilla creature?
Unplayable trash. No. Like, what? It has keywords, but all of them like are useless. Like,
they are, yeah.
Menace, trample, first strike. Like, I guess reach is relevant, right? But like those 3 go against each other. It's like if you have a 10/10 death touch, it's like, okay, but it's killing everything anyway. I guess it combos with trample, right? But like, there's a lot of fake keywords here, and Ward 7, while nice, is not enough. Because if someone wants, they can pay 7 life to destroy it. In addition to, nice Day of Judgment, like there's a lot of things you could do. It doesn't have haste. Haste is absolutely needed here.
That's
Maybe
the one thing.
Yeah.
Double strike.
If it had haste, yeah.
If it had indestructible, you might be talking, but I don't know, man. Getting to 7 mana is rough, and 7 mana, draw no cards, dies to Doomblade, technically. Right? You can pay through the ward. Is like, I'm shocked. There must be a combo piece or something to warrant the price, right? Like, why is it so expensive?
It's got to be the like keyword soup type stuff, I guess. People that want to play in their Odric Commander deck or Soul Flayer and Pioneer or something. Like, it's got to be those people that are.
No. Don't say that. Don't say that, Seth. Don't say it's for a Commander deck. Soon as you do, the card becomes S tier in standard. Something breaks. But I am gonna say, I am very surprised it doesn't have haste. Amongst all of that, I would trade any one of those.
Would it even be good if it had haste? I would still think it's
probably just okay,
right? Yeah,
at best.
I mean,
I don't know. I'm curious. See if it.
When I read it now, I'm not sure it's meaningfully better, that much better than Phyrexian Fleshgorger in standard, which is a card that like sees a bit of play, which is what? The same ward, essentially. It's pay 7 if you full price it. So 7 life, lifelink, and menace, I want to say, is what you get on Flesh Gorger. I feel like all those other keywords don't actually add that much compared to a Phyrexian Flesh Gorger. All right, so Sire 7 Deaths, it'll be interesting to see how that shakes up. What about Twin Flame Tyrant? Part of the, kind of the red version of Bloodthirsty Conqueror. Richard, what do you think about that card, and what is that card?
So 3 red, 5 mana, 3/5 dragon. It has flying. If a source you control would deal damage to opponent or permanent, and opponent controls, it deals double that damage instead. Very strong. Great commander card.
It's
a doubling effect
card,
with
though?
the body. Yeah, it's a doubling effect with. So the problem with doubling effects is if you have nothing going on, you play it, nothing's going on,
And it does nothing.
At least this thing you can untap and attack for 6, right? And it has pseudo haste in the sense that whatever you're attacking with the turn you play it gets double damage. So this thing seems highly playable to me.
This card's sweet, but I have one concern. Would you play this or would you play Terror of the Peaks? Because right now I think Terror of the Peaks, I know they're not the same because like I know Terror of the Peaks is part of a combo deck, but I just like Terror of the Peaks a little bit more just because of the Ward 3. So if they do remove it, it costs them 3 life. But this could just kill someone out of nowhere. So I think you'll be doing a little bit of juggling there. But as of right now, Twin Flame Tyrant seems really good. But Terror of the Peaks still exists. Just saying.
You also got Dragonhawk in the 5-drop slot that can be pretty good, generating card advantage. The thing about these cards is they don't do anything. There's no ETB trigger or anything, right? So if you just kill it, you can get out from under this. Same with the black one, Bloodthirsty Conqueror, without it actually wrecking you. So I feel like there's a little bit of a safety valve, but still, like, double damage on what is essentially a 6/5 body, since it doubles its damage as well, seems like a pretty strong effect. So I imagine there's going to be uses for it, but yeah, you're right. It's going to be interesting to see the juggling act with so many like sort of similar cards competing for the same slot. But I feel like this one, it's got it. 5 years, sometime in 5 years. Ooh,
they
so
stack,
much
right? You
damage.
Twin Flame Tyrant, untap another Twin Flame Tyrant. That's like 4x.
Then you just win.
Twin Flame Tyrant, Bolt Wave. Like you can
Bolt
just
wave.
fire off a Bolt Wave, right? Like that's 6
Bolt
damage, right?
God.
Like
yeah. If you untap
It's-
with this, you should win.
plus whatever you
Yeah,
have. Remember whatever you have on board too, right? If you just have like 5 power on board, you just dealt 10 to their face with a Bolt Wave. That's 16 or something. Like this is like a
Isn't that just
trivial
the same,
amount of
though?
damage, right?
Isn't that the same if you just play Calamity, right, and Terror of the Peaks? Because I was like, oh, you can Calamity Twin Flame. I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter. They're both dead either way, right? Like,
I'm just saying, it's a lot. Like I think it's like Panharmonicon. If you just play it, it probably sucks. If you play it on like a 5 mana 5/5 body, it might be legit, right? Because it does something when there's nothing else around. So doubling damage is very powerful. And it's coming on a 3/5 flying body now. So I think that can't be, ignored. And then Bolt Wave. 1 mana, 6 damage.
And Bolt Wave. Iridescent Vine Lasher. There's ways to get some damage.
You have
going
a
in
board
there.
before this too, right? You have whatever they couldn't remove is smashing them as well, right? So I actually really like this card. I think it's going to be really strong.
Yeah, I think this one should be good too.
yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Alesha, who laughs at fate. So Rakdos, 1 black red, 2/2, legendary creature, human warrior. First strike when Alesha attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Raid at the beginning of your end step if you attack this turn. Return target creature with mana value less than or equal to Alesha's power from your graveyard to the battlefield.
So this card's not getting much hype, and
No
I do have a big concern. So Raid triggers off of anything attacking, so it doesn't have to attack. You just need something to attack.
So you
Here's
can just attack
my-
and then reanimate as soon as you play Alesha.
Yeah, so what I'm imagining, we got like Fear Missing Out, Charming Scoundrel, these 2-drops that let us loot ETB. So I'm imagining you have like a Rakdos deck where you like loot your FOMO, get a FOMO in the graveyard or whatever, play this, reanimate it for free. My concern is it kind of dies to everything, right? Like as a 2/2, cut down, shock. But I don't know why I said that so quiet, like my opponent was listening or something. But cut down, shock, like it dies to all those removal spells. Is that a deal breaker? Like, is this great because, or is this potentially strong because you can reanimate every turn in their synergy? Is it bad because cut down, shock, burst lightning, all kill it and it's a 3-drop?
I think that it having raid does give it a reason to take a look at it, like you had mentioned, just because you can play it on 3, maybe. I don't know. The problem here is, like, what are you doing in the early turns to set up all of this value, right? Because, like, assume that as soon as you play this on 3, like, but like FOMO, right? The FOMO's all you've got, right? So, I mean, as of right now, is having FOMO enough to like make this card good, right? And even assuming that you can abuse that raid ability, I still think Alesha is just solid right now, but not.
Okay, hear me out, Chris.
Not the 3
Turn
mana
1
investment.
Kellen.
Yeah.
Turn 2 FOMO. Your phone's like, oh crap, Doomblade something. Turn 3, attack the thing that didn't get Doombladed, Alesha. Like that's the curve. Maybe it works. It's only a 2 the time it plays because it has to attack to get the +1/+1 counter.
Yeah. So you only get back a 2.
You only get a 2. I feel this requires so much setup for very mediocre results. Like, I don't know that this is game breaking for this much amount of work, and it literally dies to everything. It literally dies to shock, right?
I know, people don't like the dies to Doomblade thing, but this is very different, right? There's a big difference between being like, it dies to Doomblade, which kills everything, and it dies to cut down or shock, because you can control that, right? Like, all your creatures are going to die to Doomblade. You can play something that has 3 toughness, though, and doesn't die to shock. So I think that's the difference in those arguments. That's my concern, is it's too fragile, but I like cards that can snowball, and this does seem like a card that, when the best case scenario happens, it is a card that can snowball, like, repeatedly. We'll have to see if it's actually enough.
The problem is there's a world where you let this resolve and attack you because it's doing nothing relevant. And I feel for 3 mana, that's a problem. Because, like, every other card is actually snowballing the game for real out of control, but there are certain cases where this actually does nothing. And then you're like, okay, yeah, whatever, right? I take
true.
The hit, Day of Judgment, right? Take 2 damage, call it a day, right? Like, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're feeding into my Day of Judgment. Like, the main thing is also, to add on to what Seth was saying, is, yeah, sure, it could die to Doomblade, but also you have to think about the mana investment. And there are effects where it's worth it. If it dies to Doomblade, so be it. But if it doesn't die that turn, the value, the snowballing, it takes over. So there are things that are where its upside is worth, like, risking it dying to Doomblade. And I just don't feel like that Alesha right now is at that risk level where I'm going to invest that mana and have it just instantly removed.
Yeah.
All right.
That's fair.
We're going to hop over to Commander real quick. Even though this is a standard card, Blasphemous Edict. 3 black. So 5 mana sorcery. You may pay black rather than this spell's mana cost if there are 13 or more creatures on the battlefield. Each player sacrifices 13 creatures of their choice. It looks like Blasphemous Act, but I'm here to tell you it is not Blasphemous Act. Don't get trapped. 13 creatures is a lot. So Blasphemous Act reduces the cost for each creature in the battlefield. So if there's 8 or something, you can still cast it. This requires 13 creatures on the battlefield whose threshold may not be met. And when it's not met, you may not be able to cast this whatsoever. But it's only 5 mana. It's only 5 mana though, right?
Yeah,
so,
like Richard, I'm not even counting that this is ever going to be 1 mana. I'm looking at this as
just a 5 mana mass sacrifice. Ooh.
Yeah, and I love edicts. But you know what? The biggest thing I hear from you two every time I bring up an edict is, but it doesn't get everything.
This one does.
This one gets everything.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yes,
but it's not.
This one for the most part
what was Heartless Act? What was the Black Farewell? The Black Farewell destroys everything.
6.
Then
that card
mana.
That card was so bad.
That was very bad.
This gets around indestructible. This gets around hexproof. But it still triggers all the dying effects and all the graveyard effects.
True.
Like any board wipe would, right? This is practically just a board wipe. Okay, sure. Maybe not Farewell, but this is a board wipe that in a multiplayer game, I think that this is more often than it's not gonna happen often, but I do think you're gonna see it. Like, where it's just going to cost 1 mana. But I just think as a 5 mana card, I would play this in Commander. I would even play this in Standard, by the way. because between this and like Deadly Cover-Up, I think I'm noticing a lot of things in this standard has ward. There's lots of ward. There's lots of, ways to protect your creatures. This gets around all of that. So I think this is going to be good across multiple formats, as in standard and commander. I think this is just a solid card in black.
I mostly agree. In standard, I think I've really come to love Deadly Cover-Up. The surgical extraction mode on that card is actually like super relevant. So I think it's in a vacuum, I probably play Deadly Cover-Up over it, but I think this is Wrath number 2 in a black deck in standard, and it has some upsides. Thruns are indestructible creatures. In commander, is this not the second best black Wrath? Even take into account that it's not exactly Blasphemous Act, and it's not always going to be 1 mana, but like, you have Toxic Deluge 1, right? Yeah. I think there's an argument, at least, this is number 2. Like, what Damnation?
Damnation? Like, what? Don't you want to just play Damnation? It gets rid of Indestructible, right? How common?
You get around like this gets around that, which everything has Indestructible.
In Commander, I think the 1 mana mode is going to come up on occasion. Not as much as Blasphemous Act, obviously, but 13 creatures, 4-player game, that's what, 3.25 creatures per player? Like, that's doable. That happens kind of regularly, right? Like someone pops off and you're going to cast it for 1 mana. I think it's going to happen enough that it might be better than Damnation.
Okay, what's more likely though? Someone actually has more than 13 creatures. How often does that come up? Right? They're a token deck, and you try to rat them, and you're like, oops.
Get all their 1/1s.
Oh, you got half my Avenger of Zendikar tokens. Darn. Right? Like, is that going to be a problem? I don't know. I mean, man. This is interesting. Yeah. Now that you think, I thought like the reduction mode was key, but 5 mana for non-reduction is actually kind of reasonable.
It's not that bad.
I would play Decree of Pain, Toxic Deluge, Heartless. Is it Heartless Conscription? One of the exiles, I think you can cast it. I don't play Damnation. I don't play Crux of Fate. I don't play those weird ones. But if you're a Damnation believer, what's 1 more mana? 1 more mana, get around.
Only 1 more mana.
You have an Avacyn player in your pod. You're like, okay. So it's kind of reasonable, but I don't know. I'm not like I gotta play black to play this. Like, it's just a Wrath, and we have lots of Wraths. Like maybe Mutilate is better. I don't know, right? So there's
Mutilate is not better.
Not in most decks.
Okay, maybe not. Next card. How about Loot? Exuberant Explorer. 3 mana 1/4. Legendary creature Beast Noble. It's green. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. 6 mana tap. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. Reveal a creature card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from among them and put them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order.
This is just
this better than Miku.
This is just balanced Azusa, right? But I mean,
is it
also? Okay, so Azusa giving you that burst of mana early makes her absolutely nuts. Or sorry, did I say Azusa? I meant Miku, also known as Azusa. But then the late game, this is actually better than Azusa because now you've played all your lands. What are you going to do with it? Loot actually gets you to something.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think they go in the same deck. I think Loot is still very solid. It's a solid, whatever ramp deck exists, I think you're going to want to play this, right?
So you think it's going to show up in standard then? That was what I was trying to figure out, because I think Overlord of the Hauntwoods is like the premium 3 mana ramp spell in standard. You play just like a couple loots on top of that if you're playing some sort of ramp or domain deck. It is legendary, so you might not play all 4. The second mode is an upside. It's kind of like if Azusa was mixed with Kinnan almost. Like, it reminds me of Kinnan in that sense, where you have like this ramp mode that also is eventually going to be able to put a big thing on the battlefield. I think it's good. I don't think I would replace Overlord of the Hauntwoods with it, but I think I would play some number of these on top of Overlord of the Hauntwoods in standard. Plus, people, like, if you have specific land synergies, bounce lands, we have Arid Archway in standard right now. If you're doing those shenanigans, it goes up even more in value, I would say. But I think it's one of the better versions of the like Azusa effect that we've seen, just thanks to the second mode, like doing something that Dried of the Ilsen Grove, Wayward Swordtooth, all the other versions of this don't really do.
Yeah, Azusa's better in fetch land formats, right? Because you just fetch land and you're guaranteed to hit all your land drops for the rest of the game. A non-fetch land formats, you just run out of lands, and you might also run out of gas. So loot allows you to actually turn those lands into something useful. So you can on like turn 3 play this, turn 4 play lands up to 6, tap, use loot immediately, try to get something going. So I think loot can be strong, but I think for older formats, Azusa is still the best at what she does, because that's like 2 guaranteed lands every turn for the rest of the game until you run out of fetchable targets. Which if you built an Azusa deck right, you're not going to run out. So yeah. But standard. Probably we don't have fetch lands in standard, right? Do we have like
Not
any
real
passable?
ones.
We have Fabled Passage.
Fabled
Yeah,
Passage is the best. Evolving Wilds effects, but yeah, no super top tier ones.
I mean, Fable could work if you play enough basics.
Fable, yeah.
Because once you're past 4 or whatever, it's basically just a fetch
Then it's
land,
a good
right?
fetch land, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that's all the time for spoilers that we have today. However, Krim, I know you mentioned real quick something you want to bring up on the podcast that has to do a little bit with Magic, a little bit with Pokemon. What's going on in the Pokemon world these days, Krim?
I mean, I don't know if y'all have been going around outside, but there's a
Outside?
lot.
I'm a gamer, Krim. What is that?
Oh, true.
I don't know those
True.
words.
You don't need to go
you're
outside for this one.
Yeah, you don't even. This is beautiful. You don't even have to go outside as well.
saying. Hey, okay.
Pokemon Pocket. Pokemon Pocket. It's the brand new game that just came out from Pokemon. And I talked a little bit on the last podcast about how they let me do an event. I tried it out early. And it's really leaning into the casual play experience of Pokemon, which is what? Pack opening, collecting, and just showing off the cool border treatments and foiling that you've got, right? Well, this game came out on the 30th, I think, and in 4 days it made $12 million.
Wow.
And it went well over 10 million downloads. So this game right now had me wondering, because, like, yeah, I'm not surprised Pokemon did it. This is not going to be better than peak Pokemon Go, but it is a phenomenon right now. It's got a wonderful PvE system inside where you can battle, win rewards, get, it's, I've heard from other PokeTubers that it's fairly free to play. Like, you can get where you need to go if you want to be free to play. Obviously, you can expedite that process if you sink money into it. And I'm addicted. This game is addicting. Why
Shocking.
could Magic have this? Could Magic have this?
So one thing
'Cause
I've
there's-
learned, Krim. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say because there's no IP, right? This could have been a pile of doo-doo, but you're like, Krim was like, wow, Gengar, yeah, Gengar, right? He's gonna open it, right? And we don't have the same thing for like you could pack cracks, and you're like, okay, I don't know, whatever, Kellen, yeah.
I think I disagree, and here's why. Because of TCG Shop Sim, which has no IP. It's all made up, and it's still super addicting to crack the packs. Just like the feel of it, the cards popping up, the artwork, the pricing. Oh, you got the cool thing. I don't know why Magic doesn't have that. Like, if there was some sort of Magic app where I could just like crack booster packs, just like, even digital, fake, like free booster packs, that would be so cool. So I don't know why they don't take advantage of that. Between this game and TCG Sim, I'm convinced the future is in digital booster pack cracking. Like, that's the future.
Yeah,
Get on it, Watsy. Yes,
It's super. It's super
also
fun
true,
too.
but
I urge you to to take a chance. Just download it. It's free. Open a pack on there, Richard, and just see what it's all about. Like, they nailed it. They nailed. When you open on Arena,
The
it's like the
IP's
most
not strong enough for
dreadful.
me.
Well, but the thing is, I would argue now against that is that now because we have UB, it's more exciting, right? Because okay, cool. You don't care about Jace? Great. Well, here's Iron Man, right? Like
That's true.
everybody from all over now can get in on it, especially because you have Universes Beyond. This is exactly what you would want to launch with Universes Beyond. And actually, don't do the Hasbro thing. Don't be a greed lord. Go out there and actually make it free to play. Not air quotes, like free to download, like that kind of garbage. They always, like, people try to market that like it's free to participate. Okay, sure. No, I mean, like, Pokemon like Pocket actually on like what it gives you an 8-hour window where your free packs reset. You get 3 packs. If you're on the battle pass, you get like a 3rd pack or whatever. But you get to open packs for free. and you get to
Why are
play
you guys
with
such
cards.
degenerates? You're not even playing the game. What
It's
are you doing?
just
open the
fun.
pack.
You can, but the thing is, they have. a game
I
too.
got you. You can go to the Pokemon subreddit, okay? Or I don't know, Pokemon art. I don't know any of this. And you can just scroll beautiful Pokemon art all day. You don't
Is it
need to
random,
crack
Richard?
RNG.
Is it random? I need the
You guys are such
RNG.
degenerates. But I would say this is the strength of strong IP. This is the anti-Universes Beyond argument, right? Because this could have been so Krim says it's very good. And I think most people have concluded this is very good. But it could have been like a steaming pile of trash. And it would have made at least like half of this in the time, right? Just because it's Pokemon, right? You're like, oh, Pokemon,
Yeah.
a new chance at Pikachu? Let me go take a look, right? So that is the power of having strong IP. So I wish if Wizards was like, oh, here's the new Jace game, everyone's like, yeah, let's go. But everyone's like, well, it's gonna suck. I'm not gonna play it. Right? I wish we had that strong IP that we could do that. Like, I'll, these guys are just cracking packs looking at pictures of Pikachu, and they're having fun.
Now,
That's a powerful thing.
we're not there yet, but it would be sweet if we could get there. And I would still crack Magic packs, even without the
you're a
IP. I would
degenerate,
still.
Seth. You
I know
don't
I'm a
count.
degenerate. Yes.
You
Maybe
would-
I
you
don't
would
count,
spend
but
hundreds of dollars for this privilege. Shoot, you don't even need free to play.
Anyway, I think that's all the time we have in our cast today, but I do have one super quick fish mail I wanted to slip in. So this is from @Kylometers. Says, do you guys have Blue Sky or any other social media? I'd like to follow you elsewhere as this site goes to hell. Talking about Twitter. I don't think we've ever talked about that. Is there any other social media that we use regularly that we actually would like people to follow us on? Anything worth shouting out?
I think we have a
Instagram,
Blue Sky account.
TikTok, like Goldfish specifically, right? Because we have an Instagram, we have a TikTok, and I still don't know how. I was informed this by Seth and Richard, but our Facebook was banned, and I have
Facebook
no
was banned a
idea.
long time ago.
Well, yeah.
Twitter's where we're
That's
most
so
active.
funny.
But I've been hearing a lot of Blue Sky chatter. I think we actually have the Goldfish. I better check now, because if we don't, someone's going to snag it immediately if it's not been taken after we air this. But I think we have it. We just don't do anything with it. But it would be simple to hook up. I mean, YouTube and Twitter are where we're most active, right?
Yeah. Those are the biggest ones, but maybe we'll look into Blue Sky. I think I also have it Saffron Olive on Blue Sky, even though I'm not very active with it. But do you have a Blue Sky too, as well as Krim?
I'm on all of it. Blue Sky Threads.
Krim's got them all.
I'm on all of it. Just because, look, I don't want to have to fight for my name again. And if Twitter implodes, then I'll be wherever it is needed, right? Like, sure.
Twitter did implode, Krim. It's X.
Oh yeah, sure. I guess you're right. Oh,
Richard, if people want to send in fish mail for next week, how do they go about doing that?
Hit us up at MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 509 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So Richard Gribb, thanks for hanging out. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And we'll be back next week to talk about whatever goes on in the world of Magic. So until then, have a lovely week, everyone. And this is a crew signing out.